everyone, and welcome to Cargo Transportation Masterclass, a fresh start for shippers globally after coronavirus. It's the only online event where we share with industry fellows how you can bounce back after market collapse. And today, it is my huge pleasure to introduce to you Hariesh Manaadiar, versatile industry expert with over 30 years of experience in shipping industry, in global transportation. And Hariesh is one of the first educators globally online who spends a lot of time and resources to educate exporters, importers, logistic providers on pertinent industry issues. Hello, Hariesh. Happy to have you with us.
Hello, Lina, and thank you for having me on your show.
Hariesh,
it's a pleasure to be here.
Today we discuss with you how to reduce impact of pandemic to small and medium size cargo importers, exporters, and logistic providers. But before we start, can you share with us what brings you to, or what keeps you delivering a high quality education for cargo transportation industry, what you do with shipping and freight resources?
All right. I started in shipping, as you mentioned, about 30 years ago, and I have learned many things along the way in terms of many different sectors of the industry, whether it is container shipping, ro-ro, break bulk, many sectors, and within those areas in terms of documentation, operations, and sales, and currently in management. And I know for a fact that it is not easy for many people who are entering the industry to understand this whole the concept of the whole industry, because shipping accounts for about 85 to 90% of global trade. Sea freight, accounts for about 85 to 90% of global trade, and there are many factors involved in that. There are many divisions within shipping. There's maritime, there's logistics, there's supply chain, there's trade, many different areas that are confusing to many newcomers. So about 12 years ago, when I was interviewing certain candidates for my business, I realized that there was a big skills gap. And to address that skills gap, I said, okay, the best way for me is to share my experiences and knowledge with the world in general. But the easiest way for that would be an online presence. And that is when I decided, okay, I should start writing something about it. So I started writing something small about the basics of shipping and stuff, and then I noticed there was a good response for that, and many people came and started asking various questions, and gradually my blog has grown. Now it's grown to about, the last year I had 2.35 million visitors on my blog, and I've written about 750 plus articles covering various aspects. So this is where I'm coming from. This is my contribution back to the industry that I've learned so much from.
In particular, now at these times, I imagine that all your followers are seeking for your guidance, what to do, how to overcome this pandemic, how to reduce impact. What are the three key impacts you see of coronavirus for shipping?
Well, the biggest impact is the uncertainty, and also the biggest impact is the cargo movement. The trade patterns have changed quite drastically now because of COVID. Because, for example, now when it started with China, and it started affecting Chinese exports to the rest of the world. And at the time of shutdown, then it also started impacting on the imports into China. But now we see in March now, China is revived. China is coming back on track, but then the rest of the world is falling behind. USA is being affected quite severely, Italy, Spain. So it's the impact on both ends that is going to be quite heavy for both the exporter and the importer, and also and mainly for customers who have long-term contracts with their buyers and sellers. And the other big impact within this is the cost factor, because whether it is a port, a customs, or the country itself, a lot of countries are still uncertain of how this will end up, how the business needs to be handled. Some of the countries are on lockdown. For example, South Africa has been on lockdown since 27th of March, and they say the lockdown is going to be for 21 days. And while the ports are working, it is working at half the capacity,
Yes,
because they also need to control their
of course.
workers and stuff. So when port is working at half the capacity, that means everything is halved, and there is a big cost buildup coming, because the according to the regulations of South Africa, for example, the only the essential goods are allowed to be transported. The essential goods meaning food and food supplies and anything related to food or medical, those kind of items. So what happens to the rest of the items? The rest of the items are sitting in the port or somewhere incurring storage, demurrage. So that is a big impact for the customers, because there is a big uncertainty on who is going to bear the cost, whether it is going to be the shipper or the importer or the shipping line or the forwarder. There's many unknowns in this. So that is a big impact. And the third one I would say is the way forward with the because of this COVID-19 and the impact it has had on global trade, is going to be many changes that want to avoid a repetition of something like this, and to be better prepared, because this has thrown the entire world literally,
Yes.
because there's about 197 countries in the world, and I think at this stage all the countries in the world are affected. So those are the three main impacts that I can see coming out of this COVID-19.
Absolutely. Even if Chinese factories, we hear that they started to reopen, there is a lot of still uncertainty. What would be your advice for exporters and importers, how to adjust and adapt to the current situation while waiting until import and export levels become to the normal?
Well, the biggest problem for any importer in any country would be the availability of the goods, one, and also whether the regulation allows it. Again, using South Africa as an example, importers are not allowed to import or bring in non-essential goods at the
Yes.
moment. So, because they cannot bring in non-essential goods, they will have to look locally for some sourcing. Maybe obviously every commodity or every cargo is not going to be available locally, but the only thing that anyone can do at this time is really to make sure that they can try and source from wherever possible, maybe across the border, maybe local production, and not only depend on China, for example.
Yes.
But as you said, China is back on track, but some of the other destination countries are not. So it is
Yes.
really a problem for some of the people to secure goods.
Do you consider local sourcing can become an alternative to earn extra income for a while?
Yes, for a while, but more for the sellers of those products than the buyers of the products, because the buyers obviously are not buying locally because they can source it cheaper from overseas. And it's not just from China, from other countries as well. I mean, every country has products that they source from elsewhere, because it is cheaper to do an import than to procure locally. But at this stage, there is no choice. I mean,
Yes.
right now, all over the world, people, humanity, and things like empathy should take on more than money. That is why governments are supporting small businesses as well. governments like Canada, governments like China, like
Yes.
South Africa have all announced measures to help these small businesses who may be suffering, or in fact businesses that can suffer because of lack of imports or exports.
Yes, absolutely. And it's very nice to see that due to unfortunate events, business started to come together, governments as well. And we will never be the same. I believe we were coming closer to each other due to this unfortunate situation.
Yes. This level of cooperation is we've never seen before.
Exactly,
Never,
unprecedented.
I mean, within the country or even outside the country, this level of cooperation is quite spectacular to see. And I mean, in fact, in South Africa, people have been asking, the government is so efficient right now, why can't they be efficient all the time? It's a valid question. I mean, the government is doing a lot of activities and things to control the COVID, and so the people are saying all the departments are working fine, everybody is friendly, and it's a good thing. Yes, it is definitely.
Hariesh, based on your experience, many years of experience in industry, you have seen several market collapse. Can we establish any patterns of economy bouncing back and business bouncing back? What works well?
Market collapse, I see in these times of COVID also, I don't think it is a complete market collapse. Markets are restrained to quite an extent, but it has not collapsed totally. But yes, the closest comparison would be the 2008
Yes.
recession, which brought down a lot of companies, which brought a lot of issues to the front. But this is a different kind of problem. COVID is a physical problem. It's not a paper problem. It's not a abstract problem. This is a real problem. It's a very real, very practical, and very visual problem, which prevents us from doing things physically, operationally.
Yes.
Like even if people have the money to trade now, people are not economically broke, but they cannot trade because of physical restrictions. Whereas in the other collapses or other issues that we have had, it was more on the basis of currency being down or paper problems, abstract problems.
Mm-hmm.
So the COVID is completely different, and the only way we can really get back is once everything is back on track, all the countries are back to trading. We need to analyze all the problems that happened during this COVID and see how we can adjust to it. As I said, because it is a physical problem, it is more difficult to tackle and handle or to replicate to find a solution. So it is really a lot of brain power is required to see how we can come to terms with something like this if it ever comes back again.
So true. Hariesh, for certain companies, it has become already a question how to stay in the business and how to survive this COVID for the next 3 to 6 months from now. What would be your advice? How to save cash for import and export companies?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, maybe if it is a small to medium business, they need to look at doing things locally for the time being,
Yes.
or and put maybe their import and export plans in the back burner for now. And where governments are helping them, they need to take that help and see what they can do locally, or to try and remodel their business strategy or remodel their business philosophy to see how they can trade after COVID. And also, like for example, some of the people have, some of the traders rather have moved to transporting or doing supply chain in essential goods like your hand sanitizers, soaps, masks, medicines, vaccines, and all those kind of all those kind of goods that are really relevant during this pandemic. So maybe that is something that some people can do. Of course, it is not for everybody, and it's going to flood the market as well. So certain people can do those kind of activities, or or some of the companies can focus their energies on local transportation, because
Yes.
in some of the countries, even during lockdown, essential transportation is allowed, freight transportation is allowed. So that is some services that they can offer. So those are a few ideas that they can that the small to medium businesses can look towards. And in terms of managing their cash, as I said, they have to look towards the government and to appeal to them to do some tax benefits or tax reductions, which the governments are already doing.
Yes.
But maybe they can consolidate or create a consolidated uh, information about what went wrong with their business and what they lost, and then they try to negotiate with the client, with the government, for some better deals going forward.
So true. Hariesh, I feel like it's a good moment for companies to invest in education. Not money, but as well time. Have you noticed any specific demand for knowledge from your followers, from your subscribers?
The one of the big things that COVID has brought to the fore, as you rightly said, is education, and education more in the area of regulations. Because right now, because of this pandemic, many contracts are not being observed. Many
Yes.
contracts have been
Frustrated.
becoming redundant. Becoming redundant. People don't know what to do and what are their rights, what are their liabilities, who's responsible for what. As I mentioned earlier, if the container comes and sits in the port, who's responsible for the freight? Sorry, not freight, the local charges. So those kind of issues are coming up to the fore, and mainly issues surrounding regulations that are coming up, and that is one of the items that I tried to clear in one of my articles previously, when I wrote about the impact of COVID-19 on a bill of lading. For example, if people had access to electronic bills of lading, it would have been much easier now, because if you don't receive a paper bill of lading, you cannot get release of the goods. But if
Yes.
you had an electronic bill of lading, that would have been easier. So there's a renewed interest in things like this, in people trying to educate themselves about this, and people trying to understand more about the local and international regulations, and how charter parties will be affected, how demurrage and detention is affecting them, and what 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 do you call what feedback they can get from from the shipping lines and government, for example,
Mm-hmm.
what recourse they have. So these are things that people are wanting to know more and more, and and you're right, it's a time of learning for everybody. And there are certain things even the local law enforcement
Yes.
doesn't understand, because government is setting some regulations, but everybody interprets it differently. So people are trying to understand those kind of things and educate themselves more in that.
So true. Hariesh, you shared with us so many insights today, which I really appreciate. If I asked you, what is the last advice? How shippers, exporters, importers globally should use this time effectively? What would it be?
Um, at this stage, as I said, digitalization is a big buzzword in the market, but one of the biggest things that COVID has brought out to the front is how important digitalization is to any business, not just a shipping line, not just a freight forwarder. So going forward, I think there should be a lot more interaction, a lot more investment, a lot more discussion surrounding digitalization and how it can really help, and especially in times like this when physical movement is restrictive. So to everybody, and digitalization is going to catch up with everybody, whether they like it or not, whether they want it or not. It will catch up. But this is a time where you can really look at what happened in your business, what were the issues that you faced, what were the downfalls, and maybe try and analyze what could have been done better, and then try to revive that. Like I'm pretty sure a lot of the people at home are also having this same discussions about themselves because
Yes.
they cannot handle working from home all of a sudden. So these are things that a company can try and do in this time.
So well said. Hariesh, I know that you have a free gift to offer to our audience. What is it?
Well, I'm almost finalized with a definitive guide on bill of lading. As I said, bill of lading is one of the key documents, and one of the documents that has many legal implications and ramifications if it is not handled correctly, whether it is a paper bill of lading or an electronic bill of lading. There are many different issues surrounding a bill of lading, and there is a lot of questions also that comes up about bills of lading. So I've put all this together as a guide, which I will be releasing soon, and it will be a very interesting guide for many people.
Fantastic.
It is in fact a paid guide, but for this masterclass, I'm offering it free.
Thank you so much for generosity. But most importantly, thank you so much for all your work, what you do to support our industry, to educate, to share your knowledge, because it is true, it's not obvious what we do behind the closed scenes.
Yeah, yeah. We are the invisible heroes. Nobody
We are.
knows us, but we are there.
Hariesh, tell our audience how we can find you, how we can follow you online.
Well, all details relating to me is available on my website, and this is a very interactive site. I respond to all the comments that are posted by readers on the articles, and the blog has survived because of the readers and the renewed interest that they have. So all my contact details are on the website. It's shippingandfreightresource.com. It's one word, shippingandfreightresource.com. That is the only information that is required, and all information relating to me, contact details, everything is available there.
So very good. And if I may stack, I'm huge, many years fan of Shipping and Freight Resource. As starting in industry, being now well-versed professional, I always go back there for a second opinion to double check, what do you think, what other contributors think, because it's a fantastic ecosystem which unites industry fellows willing to give and willing to share. Thank you so much for what you do for our industry, and thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you, Lina, and thank you for the opportunity. Much
Bye.
appreciated.